we're hard earners. We pay our taxes. And I think the city needs space, dare I say, for us to be here. People like Leo Jacobs, people like Bob Knakal. We take care of the city. We care about moving the city forward.
Oh, look, you need economic engines. And so for elected officials to encourage Amazon to go away, for the mayor to go on TikTok and in front of Ken Griffin's building and call him out when he's contemplating building a multi-billion-dollar headquarters on Park Avenue. I mean, how out of your mind can you be? Makes no sense, because no matter what your ideology is or your politics, you could want to do all kinds of fantastic things for folks who need help. But if you don't have any money, you can't do anything for anybody. Why are you killing the golden goose?
Welcome back to Confronting the Impossible. My name is Leo Jacobs. I'm your host. I have a returning guest, actually, Mr. Bob Knakal, the amazing Bob Knakal. Bob, how you doing?
Leo, how are you? So great to be with you.
Doing very well. We're looking good. How's the air tonight in The Real Deal?
I think the show is great. We have a massive crowd here. Great program. Seeing a lot of old friends, making a lot of new ones. It's a great day today.
Good. I love The Real Deal. They've done well by me, well by my firm, and they let us take it over every now and then. So I'm pretty happy about that. Well, let's talk about real estate. That's what we're here. I have an interesting thought I'd like to challenge you with. Is Mamdani good for development or not?
I think the new administration is very heavy at two ends of the spectrum. On the rent stabilized housing side, very, very bad. Rent freezes. If you don't have income, you can't make repairs.
And on the other side?
On the other side, very, very pro-development, realizing that supply really is the answer to the housing crisis. So they are promoting and encouraging new development, which is something the city desperately needs.
So I want to talk about multifamily. Your sentiment is that they're going to be bankrupt very, very soon.
Well, let me explain why I say that.
Please.
I say that because most buildings have about a 50% expense load. Real estate taxes are about 30%. Expenses are about 20%. So you're making 50% NOI before debt service. Expenses have been going up at 7% a year. If rents freeze and revenue does not go up, in 10 years, expenses will exceed revenue. So this is just math. It's not ideology.
So what if we make multifamily not-for-profit and take away the component of taxes?
Okay, well, you're talking about COPA. And I think COPA, although it was shot down, COPA will eventually pass, just like good cause eviction was shot down several times before it passed. COPA will be a reality. But if you take those same buildings and you take real estate taxes out of the picture, in 15 years, expenses exceed revenue. You have to increase revenue. People just don't live for free.
So not-for-profit is...
Not-for-profit delays the inevitable by 5 years.
So being not-for-profit will allow those that do not have a place to live now have a place to live?
No.
So what's the point of COPA though?
The thought is, hey, the nonprofit's not going to gouge and create, excessive profits. The fact is, owners are not gouging and charging excessive profits. The buildings just simply don't work. I'm not talking about any kind of political ideology. I'm simply talking about mathematics.
Well, I fear that we are talking about ideology.
It will be ideology to the point when...
Well, let me tell you what.
Okay.
Everything you're saying, expenses are exceeding the value of the property and the net operating income. The ideology here is that it is better for a government to own the housing stock than it is from a private proprietor to own housing stock. Why? Because landlords, which are B and C, not A, do not know how to administer their money in a way that could answer the question of habitability issues. Now, you're going to tell me, I think NYCHA, which is a state program, as I understand, with I think a federal subsidy, you're going to say, well, that's an example, Leo, of the government themselves not being able to take care of the housing stock. But then I'm going to tell you that in the event that COPA passes, that the government will reroute its resources strategically, meaning taxable income, to then make those properties better. So in conclusion, and then I'll give it to you to think about, in conclusion,
I'm just enjoying seeing you have a conversation with yourself.
But there's a reason for that, because I've been thinking about it. And you'll answer my bouncing back and forth. Inevitably, I think that it is a fight for who controls housing. And when you win that fight, then you could put the resources into it. Because currently, there is a stalemate. And the stalemate is, like Umberto said, I got 200 plus buildings or units or whatever. I'm not putting a lick of dollar in it until we determine what's happening. But the city is saying, we're not going to do that either until COPA is in place. Now I'm done. Now you can give me your 2 cents.
Okay. Well, first of all, NYCHA is a city program, New York City Housing Authority. Secondly, if you look at the quality of life, the way NYCHA buildings are run relative to private sector buildings, I think there's a clear difference between the two. And I think that the reality is, if you have expenses exceeding income and the boiler breaks, where are you getting the money to fix the building?
So you would get it from the owner, and the owner would either be the government, the city, or the private proprietor. What the city does not like is the private proprietor's ideology, which is, I need to make money first, and then whatever is left over, I will maybe make the building better. What the government is saying, which I do not agree with, what the government is saying is, we as the government are better at taking care of a property than you are. And we need to win COPA. So once we win COPA, we'll put in resources.
History doesn't show that. Why aren't they putting buildings into NYCHA? Why is there $80 billion of deferred maintenance in NYCHA buildings? If the government could do all that, you wouldn't have an $80 billion deferred maintenance bill attached to buildings that the municipality is already running.
So my answer to that, Bob, it's an ego thing.
Now, look, the reality is, if you think that owners are just pulling money out of their buildings so there's nothing left to make repairs, that's ridiculous. I will tell you, no matter what the cap rate is on one of these buildings, owners don't distribute $1 of cash flow for the first 5 to 7 years because something is always going wrong. Something is always breaking down. These buildings are old. Most of these buildings were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. These buildings have a lot of capital needs. And so it's not as easy to run these buildings as you think. There's always something breaking down that's unaccounted for.
I think the ideology still is, rather we own the shitty building than you, Mr. Private Actor, own the shitty building. And that, unfortunately, I think is a Marxist ideology.
Yeah, well, look, the reality is, you look at what NYCHA is doing very smartly in Chelsea with Related and Essence Development, basically knocking buildings down and building new buildings, or I should say building new buildings and then knocking the old buildings down. That should be a template for the way 100 redevelopments are going on around the city. The city owns so much property. This public housing has about a 15% lot coverage ratio. So you build a new building, tell people, look, move out of your crappy old building and move 100 feet into a brand new building and you pay the same rent. And you're really going to say that that's not fair to people?
It's not fair because when you break a building down instead of repair it, there is an assumption that it'll take more time to build it than it would be to repair it.
No. They're building the new building first. So the building's already made. So you're telling people you're not spend one night in a temporary location. You're going to move from one day to the next day you're in the new apartment.
While I believe that that is a valid reason to leave the control in the private proprietor's lair, I do not believe that the city sees it that way.
But why are they doing it in Chelsea now?
So they're doing it in Chelsea because there's some incentive that they're receiving for the people or for the government. I don't know what that is. Maybe you do. You'll enlighten us. But I'm a little Machiavellian about why people in the government would do something, because it's not for no reason that they're doing it.
Well, you do it because you're taking 2,000 crappy apartments and replacing them with 5,000 new apartments.
You know what I like about you, Bob, is that you have an extremely pragmatic and practical approach to things, which
I know common sense doesn't come into play in a lot of these conversations.
It comes from motives. And I'll tell you something. We do debt and equity restructuring, litigation, bankruptcy, and I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've thought of a logical approach, a pragmatic one, and the client doesn't want to do it because they just don't want to fold, or their ideology is different, or frankly, their motive is different. So we could keep guessing here and talking about it, but really, we're not gonna get into the motives of the government and why they really or truly want to do something, in spite of the practical, pragmatic things that you mentioned, which all make sense.
Well, Leo, you should be thrilled with the way the city is handling things, because if their approach to rent regulation stays on course, there are going to be thousands of owners that are bankrupt that are going to need your services. So as one of the top bankruptcy attorneys in New York, your business is going to be booming.
And while I look forward to that restructuring pool of multifamily, I do have a very big debt of gratitude to the preceding mayors, specifically Giuliani and Bloomberg, that have made this city great from its ecological point of view and from a reputation point of view. I don't often talk about the sentiments that I have towards New York City. I was not born here. I came here when I was 4 years old, but I can say it's made a man out of me and built a lot of character. I just think that character and sentiment is changing about the way I feel about New York City. And unfortunately, it's to my detriment, because if Mamdani was sitting in front of us here today, he'd say, hell yeah, I want Lee to feel like that. I want him to come out and go somewhere else and do something else and be in a different state. He just doesn't fit with the vibes anymore here. That's tragic to me, because we're hard earners. We pay our taxes. And I think the city needs space, dare I say, for us to be here. People like Leo Jacobs, people like Bob Knakal. We take care of the city. We care about moving the city forward.
Oh, look, you need economic engines. And so for elected officials to encourage Amazon to go away, for the mayor to go on TikTok and in front of Ken Griffin's building and call him out when he's contemplating building a multi-billion-dollar headquarters on Park Avenue. I mean, how out of your mind can you be? Makes no sense, because no matter what your ideology is or your politics, you could want to do all kinds of fantastic things for folks who need help. But if you don't have any money, you can't do anything for anybody. Why are you killing the golden goose?
So eliminating money, and I think that's the last thing I'll say, eliminating money in a Marxist society, I'll just say how it is. It's a good thing. Sharing is a great thing, and that's how they make their money. I think that's moving the economy back, because that's where we began. We're hard earners. We pay our taxes. And I think the city needs space, dare I say, for us to be here. People like Leo Jacobs, people like Bob Knakal. We made this city. We take care of the city. We care about moving the city forward. And we don't do just to do. I mean, I don't think you do just to
Oh,
do.
look, you need economic engines. And so for elected officials to encourage Amazon to go away, for the mayor to go on TikTok and in front of Ken Griffin's building and call him out when he's contemplating building a multi-billion-dollar headquarters on Park Avenue. I mean, how out of your mind can you be? Makes no sense, because no matter what your ideology is or your politics, you could want to do all kinds of fantastic things for folks who need help. But if you don't have any money, you can't do anything for anybody. Why are you killing the golden goose?
So
shouldn't take care of people just because they happen to live in a place for a long time.
well,
Shouldn't you have to create a system that works for everybody, takes care of the people who can't help themselves, but encourages people to be productive and to help the municipality be able to take care of people who need the help.
I think the value proposition from Mamdani's point of view is, I'm going to represent those that cannot afford and step on those toes of those people that are making it affordable for us. And that tug of war is never going to end. And I'll just say this, I want and desire New York City to be great because of the people that comprise of it, including the Mamdani supporters. But it should not be the aggregate of the players that are creating that economy, because they can't create the fucking economy.
I know, but Leo, you have to realize, if you say, I want to freeze rents, what you're saying is, I want to protect these folks who are in these apartments, but I don't want the owner of the building to be able to afford to make repairs. How do you do that? It doesn't drive. There has to be give and take. There has to be economic justification for these things. And it is because of rent regulation that New York City is so unaffordable for everybody. It's absolutely because you've taken, out of 3.3 million dwelling units, you've taken 1 million units and said, these are not part of the supply anymore. So people have less choices. And that's why free market rents are going so through the roof that New York City is unaffordable for everybody. It's the system that has made it unaffordable.
So again, I come back to ideology. If that is so, and what you say is true, which I think it is true, then the snapshot of all the people in the city raising their hand in 5 or 10 years should look like all Mamdani supporters, and there should be no one that is of conservative value. And if that's the frame that we want New York City to become, I think we need to go out and vote to make sure that does not happen.
Well, that's the biggest problem that we have in the city, actually, is voter apathy. Only a small fraction of registered voters actually vote in New York, and that is the biggest problem we have. So if you want to make a change, you want to make a difference, and you live in the city, encourage your family members, your friends, your coworkers, people who live in the city to actually become aware of the issues and go out and vote.
So, Bob, this was a very, very good conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to thank you for coming on again to the podcast and for all the information and input that you want to give us. God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and God bless the city.
God bless you, Leo. Thanks for having me on, my friend.
Thank you.